This is going to be a very creative segment and very fun. But of course, we have to start with understanding a little bit of the background, of the theory behind it, and then we're going to get right to it. We're going to go through the thought process of image making and what creates a really exciting image. And it doesn't matter if it comes out or not, because we're here just to learn. Whatever comes out of the photograph, it's only for your benefit and for your benefit. So we're going to work together just to kind of create cool photos and realize that the flash on top of your camera, the speedlight, is actually not that scary, despite all the incredible amount of information that's been given today. Once you understand and you break it down and you watch the course over and over, you'll start to see how things start to come together and the dots become connected, especially from the science part to the creative part. You can start connecting the dots. Unfortunately, if you don't understand the science behind it, you're just going to keep guessing the rest of your life. So I don't want that for you. I want you guys to have control. We have 3 models, and we're going to photograph them all 3. We're going to play. We're going to have a great time. We're going to create problems and fix them. If we have too much contrast, we're going to reduce the contrast through the ways we know how. If we have too much light, we're going to reduce the light. If we don't have enough light on somebody, but we have too much light on the others, we're going to fix all that as well. We're going to change the color and the mood of the whole room using just speedlights. It's going to be so much fun. So stay tuned for this one. I want to turn your attention to my keynote, please. If we can show that on the screen. Can we show that on that screen? Possible? Thank you very much. Very quickly, when you are shooting in manual flash, you have to think about 2 exposures. The first exposure is the ambience that you want to, how you want it. You want it bright, you want it dark, okay? You can control that when you are in manual flash. Let me repeat, this only works in manual flash. You can control the ambience, brightness, and darkness through the shutter speed, okay? Once you have the background, the background dialed in, or whatever's being lit by ongoing light, which is like what this is. Once you have it dialed in, your brain now switches gears to the light that's going to be hitting your subject using speed lights, okay? So 2 exposures going on in your brain. First, worry about the ambient light, get that dialed in, then worry about the light coming from your speed lights illuminating your subjects. For example, if you are outdoors and you want to balance the light, you probably want to bring the exposure value of your ambient or your surroundings to just maybe half a stop lower, so just a half a stop darker, okay? If you bring it down 3 stops darker and then you illuminate your subject with a flash, there's going to be too much of a discrepancy between the lighting hitting your subject and the lighting in the environment, which is a telltale sign that you used flash, which is horrible. So balance them out. You know that the ambient light can be exposed to about a 0 exposure or a normal value, and then bring it down half a notch, just half a stop down, so it's a little bit darker, okay? You're not going to lose any information with half a stop darker. Then you grab your speed light, and you're going to tone that down, or you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that the light on your subject sort of matches the light on your ambience. And third, you're going to remember that you need to be able to read the color of light. If you do not go through this mental step, there will be telltale signs. If you're shooting in sunset time or a time like past 6 o'clock where the sun is starting to go down, remember that the electromagnetic radiation going around the photons is going to be a lot more orange. And if that's the case, you need to grab your speedlights, which are daylight balanced at 5200K, and you need to put half a CTO filter or a full CTO filter. You guys know what the CTO filters are. So when you do that, not only are you now exposing the ambient properly, but you're also balancing the flash exposure properly on your subject. And then on top of that, you're going to the next level by matching the color of the ambient light and match it with the color of your flashlight. And now you have a photo that doesn't look like you used any flash at all. For example, this portrait here that we have. If you take a look at this picture, which I took in New York City, you cannot tell that there was a flash being used in this photograph. It's beautifully done because of the steps that I just shared with you. When I showed up to photograph this, I said, okay, we have trees, we have this arch. Okay, I want my aperture to be pretty shallow so the trees can go out of focus and I can bring attention to my subjects. Once I got that dialed down, I toned down the exposure for the ambience by about half a stop down, so it's a little bit darker. You see that? Once I got that and I liked it and I got that dialed in, switch gears, and then I put my flash in the back of the bride, pointed towards her veil, on manual flash, so I can control the exposure. Had I not done that, the flash was going to hit them, see the black tuxedo legs, see the black, because he was on the floor. That flash would have read the light, would have read part of his black pants, would have read the scene which had a lot of dark in it because it was very close to his legs, and it would have given me 3 times more power, giving me a total telltale sign that I used flash. So TTL was not the answer for this picture, so I quickly switched it to manual. I put it on the floor, pointed towards the veil, because the veil was going to be illuminated by the flash. I wanted that veil to stand out. I changed my ISO to a pretty high ISO because the flash was on the ground, at least 3-4 feet from the veil, which means I needed to make my sensor sensitive enough to the light that the light will not only hit the veil, but it will kind of wrap around very gently around the couple. Had I shot this at ISO 100, that veil would have been illuminated beautifully, and then the rest would have been pretty dark. People ask about the thought process. That's one of the thought processes that goes on with pictures like this. We're going to create these kinds of photos here with Hans, Alana, and Katie. We're going to do all 3. And we're not going to get scared about it because we're just going to work with it together. We obviously have different skills in this room, and we have different skills on people watching. Okay. The flash sweet spot. This is more for people watching that are interested in creative lighting using your speed lights on location. The flash has a sweet spot. The flash works at its best when you are at that sweet spot of settings. If you shoot at aperture, see, you want the light and you want your subjects to be separated from the background. So if you're shooting at f8, your background and your subject are going to be the same. A lot of it is going to be in focus. That's not that attractive. And then your flash has to work really hard to get all that light into that little tiny hole of f8 through your shutter, just a very small amount. And when you do that, it slows the recycle time. It creates problems. What you probably want is to lower your aperture as much as possible. You know that you want to lower your aperture so low that you're at the maximum shutter speed your flash can handle, which is what? 200 for Canon, 250 for Nikon. At 200 shutter speed, your flash is in heaven. Because at 200, your aperture is at its widest. It's at 2.8 or even lower. Okay, which means that light can just hit and all that beautiful light will just blend into your sensor. It will just go right into your sensor at 2.8. The hole is like this big on 2.8. Okay, and you're at 200 shutter speed. You get the best quality of light on your flashes using that flash sweet spot. Once you put your flash on high-speed sync, which is what the next topic, you basically grab a knife and you stab your flash to pieces. And then you tell the flash to continue working for you. And it will, but it's bleeding. It's like light's just gutting out of the flash. So it's basically not meant for that. It's like telling you guys to go lift 600-pound weights like Olympians. You're just not meant for that. If you do it, you'll break your back. You can probably do it, but you'll break your back, okay? When you push that high-speed sync button, you better have more than one speed light ready to go because it's bleeding. And all that blood is just spilling out of the light. So you need more flashes to compensate for that. You lose a large percentage of your light power when you shoot it on high-speed sync. And let me explain to you why. Understanding high-speed sync. This is an interesting concept. Let's take a look at this. Okay, if you look at that chart real quick, if you look at that chart for me, take a look at what's happening. The flash is closed on the left. Because there is no way, let's pretend we are at 1/4000th of a shutter speed. Let's pretend. At 4,000, no way the flash is going to work. Okay, the flash is not going to work. It's going to give you a black line around it. Okay. Then you push the high-speed sync button, and your flash says, "Cool, I'll do it, but I'm going to not be able to give you the light you think you're going to get." When that shutter opens, on the second square, if you can see the second square there, that white rectangle at the top resembles the flash going off in that part of the window that's open and that the first curtain left open on the sensor. So the first curtain comes down, and it reveals a little percentage of the sensor. See what I'm saying? At the top. And when that little percentage of that sensor is revealed, your flash says, "I gotta go now." So the flash fires a burst of light right there. But that burst of light is blocked by 90% of the curtain. You see that? 90% of that curtain is blocking that light. So that flash just went at it at all its might, and oops, 90% of the curtain is still closed, so only 10% got in. Okay? Then the second curtain starts to close, like on the middle square, and now you have the sensors exposed in the middle by a tiny little percentage. 10% of that is being exposed because the second current cannot wait till the first one is all the way down before it starts closing. It has to start closing. Otherwise, at 1/4000th of a shutter speed, it will just not be possible. That's why mechanical cameras like the old Leicas and the Nikons and all that, their maximum shutter speed that they can possibly do is 500 or 1,000 shutter speed, because mechanically it cannot close. This is electronic, so it's easier. So it can go up to 8,000. Mechanically, it was too hard for the curtains to close. Okay. So in the middle, that 10% in the middle of the sensors exposed, the flash goes, "Party," boom, flash, and then oops, again, only 10% of that light went through. Now you're killing your battery, right? Because your flash is thinking it's all its glory, and it's not. It's all its glory, but only 10% went through. And it's going so fast that the battery just gets drained. Then you go to the third curtain, and now the second curtain is almost all the way closed, and only the very bottom of that sensor is exposed now. And again, when that little part is exposed, the flash goes boom again. Which means that now, after that, the shutter closes and the exposure is now over. So instead of having one burst of light in the middle with exposing the whole sensor, now you have shutter opens, exposes that sensor a little bit, and then boom, one flash. Then it moves down, boom, another flash. Then it moves down, boom, another flash. Then it moves down, boom, another flash. And then the shutter's almost closed, boom, another flash. And then the shutter closes. Okay? What does that remind you of? Having that much light going through your shutter. What does that remind you of? What light behavior does that remind you of? You know how strobes behave. Strobes behave, the first curtain goes down, and then just one burst of light illuminates the whole sensor, and then it's over at some crazy speed. But when the light seems to keep illuminating that sensor multiple times, it reminds you of the way natural light hits the sensor. Natural light hits the sensor the entire time. It's just hitting the sensor. High-speed sync resembles natural light because when the sensor is being exposed little by little, the flash just keeps going, kind of like it was sunlight. Does that make sense? Yes. Now, what does that mean? It means that that whole concept of your shutter speed doesn't affect your flash is out the window on high-speed sync. Because if your shutter, aperture, and ISO affect your ambient light, and high-speed sync behaves like ambient light, now your shutter, your aperture, and your ISO is also going to affect your flash. Was that somewhat clear? Lee's like, nope. Okay. When you're outside, you take a picture. You choose your settings based on your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO to be able to get an exposure. The faster your shutter speed, the darker. The smaller your aperture, the darker. Less light gets in. The light is continuous. It just keeps on hitting that sensor. High-speed sync behaves the same way, because even though it's exposing the sensor little by little, it's still exposing it repetitively like natural light would. So now your shutter speed does affect your flash on high-speed sync. If you grab your shutter and you're on high-speed sync and you turn it up to a faster shutter speed, the flash that comes out is going to be dimmer and dimmer because it behaves just like natural light at that point. Pretty clear?
So you can go above 200 then?
No. Yes, that's why.
Okay. Is there a max with high speed?
8,000. You can go all the freaking heck way to 8,000 shutter speed. But it's very important that people make that differentiation at home when they're using flash. You know, I see a lot of people pushing that high-speed sync button, and they just keep shooting like nothing. And then they wonder why the raccoon eyes are still there. They wonder why things are just not happening properly. And then they change their shutter speed, and all of a sudden the exposure's all dark now. They're like, dude, what? I have my flash on. My computer's broken. My flash is broken. And I'm like, no, you just don't know squat. You know, like, you didn't read the science of how this light works. If the sensor's getting continuously hit by light, then you have a natural light situation, whether the light's coming from the sun or from the speed light. But if the sensor is only being hit by one blast of light at an incredibly fast speed, then you have a strobe situation, which is a totally different beast. Then your aperture controls the output, and the shutter speed controls the ambience. So below 200 shutter speed, you can control two exposures: the ambience and whatever's illuminating you with a flash. Two things separately. But whenever you go to high-speed sync, everything behaves like natural light. Okay? But then you can go all the way up to 8,000 shutter speed. But your flash is weak. Only 10% of that light went through. So you need to gang up on more lights, 3 or 4 flashes at the same time. Bobby, can I get this thing here? I got it. This is the IDC triple threat. I don't know if you guys know what this is. You can put 3 flashes here. One here, one here, one here. And then this basically attaches to your umbrella. And now you have 3 flashes going off. These are great little tools when you have high-speed sync situations. You have now 3 flashes working together to create a good exposure. So now each flash has to work less. More light gets through. It's beautiful.
On the speed light, so aren't you limited to about like 20 flashes at full power before it'll start burning out? What does high-speed sync do to the unit?
Excellent question. Yes. If you are busting out the flash at full output at that speed, you're going to probably burn out. It's going to overheat your flash, and then it will shut off. But high-speed sync, the bursts of light are very weak. They're low-frequency bursts. Because it's not going to get through, so it just gives you a little touch, a little kiss of light. So it actually doesn't burn out. Yeah. I mean, it still burns out if you keep doing it all day. But the reason why you put 3 of them here is because when you have high-speed sync, I recommend 2 things. A, your flashes better be a lot closer to your subject because the light output is so weak. Or B, put multiple flash and gang them up together. So you can grab your flash and just keep banging them in that thing. So you can go like this. One flash goes here. Another flash goes here. Another flash goes here. They're one here, one here. They're all in high-speed sync. Boom, all work together, and you can expose properly. With only one, you better be very close to your subject. Okay?